Hello and welcome to Storytime. For this week, since it's so cold, we're going to read stories about the Arctic and Antarctic, which is the North Pole and the South Pole of our world. Our first book is titled Kamik Joins the Pack. Kamik ran beside Jake as they made their way down the snowy road toward Jake's uncle's house. Jake was excited to show his uncle how much his puppy had learned and how obedient he was becoming. Jake's uncle was a great musher who had won many dog sled races. "Try to look extra strong and obedient today," Jake said as he looked down at his puppy. Kamik just wagged his tail and walked on. "Hello, Jake," Jake's uncle called out as he looked up from his work. Kamik ran and sat next to him, waiting to be patted. "Your puppy is getting bigger," he said as he gave Kamik a tap on the head. "He is," Jake said, feeling a bit of pride. "I am already teaching him commands to turn. He is very smart. I can't wait to get more dogs so Kamik can lead the way in his very own dog team." Jake's uncle was just beginning to harness his team. The dogs all looked very excited and eager to run. Jake imagined Kamik as the lead dog of the team. He was sure Kamik could lead the fastest dog team around. "It is good that Kamik is smart," Jake's uncle said as he continued to harness his dogs. "Smart, hard-working dogs are the best dogs. Be a good musher takes a lot of work." "I know," Jake said. "I have to give the dogs lots of exercise, right?" "That is true, but before you take a dog team, you must make sure they are healthy and in good condition," Jake's uncle replied. "In fall and winter, I have to cut my dog's nails so they will not break when they are running. I must also check to make sure no ice has formed in their hair on the bottoms of their paws, and they need to be fed every day, even in the middle of a blizzard, when you may not feel like going outside to feed them. Dogs rely on us to keep them healthy so that they don't get hurt when they are running with the pack." Jake watched as his uncle checked all his dogs, lifting their paws and inspecting them. Jake had never checked Kamik's paws. He leaned down and lifted Kamik's front paw, just as his uncle was doing. "There are lots of other skills that come in handy too," Jake's uncle continued. "Dogs love to chew on harnesses and ropes, so it helps to know how to sew and braid in order to fix those. And you'll need to know how to build dog houses and fix your sled if it breaks." "Wow," said Jake. "I didn't know there'd be so much to do." Jake looked down at the snow. He did not know how to do many of these things. Jake's uncle put a hand on his shoulder. "You don't need to learn everything all at once," he said with a smile. "You can learn alongside your dogs. When I was your age, I had 5 dogs. They did not know how to pull a sled, but one day I harnessed them and tried to ride around town. The dogs would not pull the sled, so I had to get off and walk with them most of the way home. I was sweating from pulling my dogs along, even though it was the middle of winter. When I was halfway home, some mushers put past me with their dog teams. I felt so embarrassed, but I never gave up. From that day, I started to slowly learn what I needed to know to build a dog team." Thinking about his uncle at his own age made Jake feel a little better. "What should I do first?" Jake asked. My Atatsky told me to spend lots of time with Kamik to get to know him, and taught me how to teach him commands while I play with him. Your grandparents taught you well. Dogs and their masters do need to spend a lot of time together in order to understand each other. My dogs know when I'm happy and when I'm upset. To know for sure if Kamik can be a lead dog, he needs to run with other dogs. I let new dogs run at the back of the team to see how they behave. Just like people, dogs behave in different ways. Some dogs work very hard when they pull. They look straight ahead as they run and never bother the other dogs. Some dogs are not as hardworking. They look around or back at me while they're running, and they bother the other dogs. A lead dog needs to be very focused," Jake's uncle said as he harnessed another of his dogs. There was one empty harness left at the back of the team. Jake looked at Kamik. He knew Kamik would be a very hardworking dog, and he wanted so badly to see him run with his uncle's team. "Maybe we should see how Kamik does with the team," Jake's uncle offered. Yes, Jake said, barely able to contain his excitement. Jake grabbed the harness and slid it onto Kamik's back. Jake's uncle showed him how to attach Kamik to the lead, and Kamik stood in line with the other dogs, eager and ready to run. We won't be able to go very far with Kamik his first time pulling. Puppies can only run for a mile or two at first. Pulling is very hard work, and we don't want to strain his muscles, Jake's uncle said. Jake nodded before leaning down to check Kamik's harness one last time. Okay, boy, he whispered to his puppy, time to show us you can lead. Kamik lifted his head and licked at Jake's face. Jake climbed onto the sled with his uncle. He could hardly believe Kamik was about to run with a dog team for the first time. Are you ready? Jake's uncle asked him. Jake smiled and nodded as the sound of the whip started the dogs running. As the dogs took off, Kamik ran hard and fast with the rest of the pack, never looking back. And they are playing. Our next book is called The Last Polar Bear. And the first book we read and this book take place in the Arctic, so up towards the north. A little polar bear cub. Ulak glanced out the window. A polar bear was not very far away. Ulak put on his boots, wind pants, sealskin parka, hat, and mittens. As he stepped outside, a gust of sub-zero wind stung his cheeks. He looked down on Ivik Street and saw everyone darting into their houses. Nanook! Bear moving fast! Go home! A woman yelled as she herded her children inside. A sudden snow squall blinded Ulak. Hearing a noise, he waited. Crunch, squeak, crunch. Just then, a blast of white thinned. Nanook was standing in front of Ulak. She looked straight back at him with her night black eyes. What are you trying to say? Asked Ulak. Nanook rose up on her hind feet and flailed her enormous paws. Then she rolled her eyes upward and headed north, as if to say, Follow me, Ulak. Against the white ice, she was yellow, then yellow-gray, and finally she was gone, her empty paw tracks appearing one after another. Ulak's grandmother came up beside him. Nanook spoke to me, Ulak said. I think she wants me to follow her. Yes, said his Akka. The bear needs you. She needs us both, Akka, said Ulak. The Arctic had changed that year. The thaw had come early. Fall was staying longer, and strange trees, flowers, and birds that usually lived in much warmer places were appearing. With all the changes in the climate, what would happen to the polar bears who needed the ice to survive? Akka, Ulak said, we must follow Nanook together. The next day, Ulak brushed the snow off his father's old sealskin kayak. The kayak had ripped coming ashore last fall. Akka would mend it. He took it over to her house. Can I help? He asked. Akka's eyes twinkled. Mending is a woman's work, she said. But there is more and more trash in the ocean that can poke holes in my kayak. It would be good to know how to mend it, said Ulak. Then I will teach you, she said. One morning, weeks later, Ulak and Akka paddled into the great Arctic Ocean to find Nanook. Look at the birds, Akka said. They are guillemots. They never nested so far north before. Now that it's warm, they've come here and laid their eggs in old crates and oil drums. Ulak and Akka paddled for days, stopping on ice floes and small islands to rest and eat the seal jerky they had sun-dried for their journey. There are fewer ice floes than there used to be, Akka said. Ulak knew ice floes were polar bear ships. Nanook used them to find food and rest. What happens if there are no more ice floes? Ulak asked. Then there will be no more Nanooks, Akka answered. They spotted another ice floe. Look, Akka, yelled Tiglook. Those 3 black spots are Nanook. They are her eyes and nose. Curled on the ice was a very young polar bear cub, all alone. It's not Nanook, said Akka, but her cub. The mother bear must have died, or she wouldn't have left her baby unprotected from the gulls. Tiglook got out of the kayak and walked toward the cub. He picked him up. I will call him Ulak, which means to survive. With the melting away of ice, he is the last polar bear. We'll take him back to town and feed him, said Akka. Tiglook tucked the baby bear in his arms, and the little cub put his arms around Tiglook and licked him on the face. Yes, said Tiglook as they paddled toward home. Our town will feed Ulak, the last of the polar bears, and show him how to live in a warming world. Our next story is also an Inuit story, titled, Mama, Do You Love Me? Mama, do you love me? Yes, I do, dear one. How much? I love you more than the raven loves his treasure, more than the dog loves his tail, more than the whale loves his spout. How long? I love you until the Ulak flies into the darkness, till stars turn to fish in the sky and puffins howl at the moon. Mama, what if I carried our eggs, our ptarmigan eggs, and I tried to be careful and I tried to walk slowly, but I fell and the eggs broke? Then I would be sorry, but I would still love you. What if I put salmon in your parka, ermine in your mittens, and lemmings in your mukluks? Then I would be angry. What if I threw water at our lamp? Then, dear one, I would be very angry, but still I would love you. What if I ran away? Then I would be worried. What if I stayed away and sang with the wolves and slept in a cave? Then, dear one, I would be very sad, but I would still love you. What if I turned into a musk ox? Then I would be surprised. What if I turned into a walrus? Then I would be surprised and a little scared. What if I turned into a polar bear and was the meanest bear you ever saw, and I had sharp, shiny teeth, and I chased you into a tent and you cried? Then I would be very surprised and very scared. But still, inside the bear, you would be you, and I would love you. I will love you forever and for always, because you are my dear one. And in the back of this book, it has some Inuit words that were found in the story, and it explains what they mean a little bit more. So you can check this out and read those sometime when you have the book. Our next book is a counting book, Animals in Antarctica. So Antarctica is at the South Pole of our world. Can you count to 10? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Good job. Give yourself a clap. 10 animals in Antarctica. And you can count along with me with this book. Antarctica is the coldest, windiest, driest continent in the world. The red dot is the South Pole. One freckled, speckled leopard seal sailing on an icy blue berg. 2 courtly, portly emperor penguins waddling across the polar plains. 3 lumbersome, cumbersome southern elephant seals lining the sandy shore. 4 slow-paced, big-faced southern right whales wallowing in rippling reflections. 5 speedy, beady-eyed snow petrels somersaulting by craggy cliffs. 6 cheeky, sneaky orcas surveying the frosty floes. 7 inky, slinky Antarctic flying squid jetting around their watery world. 8 shrimpish, pinkish Antarctic creel drifting with the turning tide. 9 nippy, slippy blackfin icefish haunting the dusky depths. 10 crimson vermilion sea stars creeping about on twinkle toes. 1 to 10, this wonderful group of quirky creatures thrives at the very bottom of the world in the harshest weather. And that is the end. Our last story for today is another story. We're going to go back to the North Pole for this one. Ulak and the Northern Lights. In the far cold north lived Ulak the fox. Ulak was a very curious fox. He asked all kinds of questions, such as, where does the wind come from? And where do rainbows go? What are clouds made of? And why is the sky blue? One evening, in the coldest part of winter, as twilight began to darken the sky, Ulak saw a pale, eerie light glowing in the north above the tundra. While he watched, the whole sky pulsed with strange blue and green ribbons of light that swirled across the sky. Ulak simply had to find out what they were. Racing along the icy shoreline, he saw a seal. What are those glowing bands of colors? He asked. Those are the northern lights, my friend. Don't they look like the sun shining on the backs of huge schools of fish? They are a sign to us that this year will be plenty of fish to eat. Ulak looked hard and thought he really did see fish, but maybe it was just his eyes playing tricks on him. Then he heard Wolf's lonely howl. Ooh! Thanks for your help, Seal, but I think I'll go ask Wolf. Ulak found Wolf high on a windy ridge. Wolf, do you know anything about these northern lights? Of course, brother. They are the campfires as distant hunters. If you look hard, you'll see the flames as they flicker to and fro. I'm calling to my relatives to warn them that hunters are approaching. I suggest that you too find safety among your people. But Ulak's curiosity was fierce and he could not turn back. Thanks for the advice, brother. I guess I will be on my way. Bounding down the snowy ridge, Ulak bumped into Polar Bear, catching them both by surprise. Come sit by me, Ulak, and I'll tell you about these dancing lights. Polar Bear pointed her big paw and said, This is a sign from our unborn children. Can you see how they turn somersaults like waves rolling on the shore? Ulak squinted and thought maybe he did see the somersaults. Still, Ulak was not satisfied. He decided to go on searching. Pretty soon, he heard hooves crunching crusty snow. Crunchity crunch, crunchity crunch. Caribou was galloping ahead, and Ulak raced to catch up. What's your hurry, my friend? Ulak asked. Please, wait for me. Caribou slowed to a walk and said, I am heading south to join the herd. I don't feel safe here by myself. But what are you afraid of? Asked Ulak. Ulak, Caribou replied, I thought everyone knew that those lights are swaying ghosts. According to the legends, sometimes they actually come down from the sky. It's dangerous to be out in the open. You may join me on my journey south if you like. Don't listen to Caribou, Rabbit shouted as he leapt past. Follow me and you can celebrate with us. Ulak wished Caribou well and was on his way, scampering across the frozen tundra. Up ahead were rabbits, all dancing on their hind legs and thumping their big rabbit paws in a steady rhythm. Can you feel the warmth of the lights? One of them asked. Another rabbit called out, We're celebrating the return of the magic sky rabbit, who has come out of his burrow. See how the light sparkles on his fur? This tells us that winter will not last much longer. Ulak was so caught up in the movement that he joined in their happy dance. He even tried thumping his tiny fox paws in the snow. Thump, thump. Then suddenly, as Ulak was dancing on the edge of the group, an enormous snowy owl swooped down. Get on my back, Ulak, he commanded. I will show you the northern lights. Ulak had never seen such a huge owl. He was a little bit afraid, but he was more curious than scared, so he climbed onto the great owl's back. Higher and higher they flew. Bright turquoise, pink, and green curtains of light swept by, streamers of light, looping and curling, flooding the night. If only he could touch them, Ulak thought. Little by little, the brightness faded and the darkness took back the night. Snowy Owl dropped Ulak on the icy ground and flew off and disappeared. Ulak shook his head to try and clear his thoughts. What were the northern lights? Where did they come from? And where did they go? He realized he was no closer to solving the mystery. Finally, as the sun's first dim glow shone in the east, Ulak decided that maybe the northern lights were put there simply for everyone to enjoy, to light up the long dark night with their magic and beauty. And that's the end. Sometimes in Minnesota we get to see the northern lights every once in a while. Those are special nights. Until next week. Bye.